Hey, what's going on guys, Chris here with some fresh gameplay from one of the new Turning Tides maps. This one's called Zeebrugge, which is based on the Zeebrugge Raid in Belgium, April 1918, where the British Royal Navy attempted to block off the port and stop German vessels from leaving it. They were using it as a bit of a base for U-boats and ships at the time. Now it was a very early testing session in the CTE, hence why everything's looking a bit weird, as none of the textures were showing. And the test was mainly just to check out the gameplay experience of the map, and to give us a general gist of what Zeebrugge is all about, which I'll be mostly chatting on about in the background to that footage. So I have to say, this is definitely one of the most unique and interesting maps I've seen in not just Battlefield 1, but in the Battlefield games in general, as its actual design doesn't follow the traditional structure of a normal map. Instead of having long sprawling plains complemented by the odd cluster of buildings, destroyed terrain and scattered debris, Zeebrugge follows a totally different kind of layout, as it's practically all water with a very thin stretch of land for infantry to battle on, with this land being the mile-long mole supporting a load of ports and docks that protruded into the North Sea. There's a lot more emphasis on the whole naval aspects in this map, with destroyers and gunboats patrolling the waters off the shoreline and around the port. And in a way, other than taking the enemy head on, using the water is often the only way to flank enemy positions. Because it's such a long and narrow map, this forces infantry into much tighter spaces, offering a lot more close quarter chaos. But at the same time, there's still a nice blend of short and long range sightlines, with some areas being littered with cover pieces and others being much more open and sniper friendly. In fact, the upper walkway, which runs all the way along the mole, linking almost all of the objective points together in a single path, gives you a pretty clear view from one side of the map to the other, which was definitely a good spot for a bit of target practice with the scout class. But the thin shape of the land that you're battling on generally helps to condense the action on the map and direct it into key areas along the docks, as when you're dashing around from one flag to another with a bunch of teammates, you'll eventually be met by a swarm of enemies, who must be pushed back in order to advance to the next objective, which essentially makes a conquest match feel a bit like a game of Rush. And there's lots of little clashes and skirmishes that take place when the two teams collide. Not just at the flags themselves, but as you're moving in between the objectives too, as there's only a limited amount of space in which you can travel through, and it's only a matter of time until you encounter the enemy team. This made the action feel quite focused and at times pretty frantic, as in a slight way it felt a bit like Battlefield 3's Operation Metro, but less of a clusterfuck, as it didn't directly send troops down linear paths, only to be stuck in a stalemate position at a door with 1,000 grenades blowing off every second. And instead it was a lot more open, but at the same time still focused along a single route, divided by a bunch of cover pieces and small enclosed areas. But I guess you could always just hop into a boat or swim around the map to avoid oncoming danger if you really wanted to, which definitely wasn't an option in Operation Metro. Because of the nature of the map's layout, it would naturally fit in well with the attack-defend game modes where one team advances and attempts to push the enemy team back, and I could imagine that game modes like Rush and Operations would tie in quite well with the kind of close-quarter battles DICE has attempted to ignite in Zeebrugge, as pushing the enemy team back along the mole would be pretty epic. I got to try out a few games of Conquest, which seemed to be fun, definitely blended a mixture of land, sea and air combat together quite nicely. And the matches started off in a very similar way to Cape Hells, where one team begins with all the flags already captured from the start, and the other advancing from the sea, starting off with a bunch of points straight from the get-go. And this reflects quite well with the fact that the map is based on a real-life raid, with the British Navy attacking the Germans. Boats are now finally much more important to your team's success, as they can be really powerful with a bunch of allies gunning down enemies taking over flags along the map. And with it being so thin and narrow, this means that planes are going to have a lot more fun doing bombing and strafing runs on their targets below, all grouped up together in predictable spots along those travel routes. Though I guess this could be more of a problem for infantry down on the ground below. So it puts a bit more pressure on your allied planes dogfighting in the sky to come out victorious, for the sake of your teammates on the floor. Now there's a total of 5 conquest markers, with the A flag being the Lumberyard battery, and the only point that actually takes place on the shore. A bit further up from this is the Viaduct, which originally connected the mole to the shoreline, but it's been destroyed, allowing ships passage from the top and bottom of the map from the left side. And the cool thing is, this actually happened during the raid, as the Viaduct was blown up in real life too, by a submarine called the HMS C3. But anyway, a bit further up from the Viaduct is the B flag, aka the Lumberyard, and if the name doesn't give it away, there's a bunch of log piles and cranes here that troops can use for cover. A bit further up from this is the C flag, or munitions dock, pretty much the central point of the map where a lot of the action is going to take place. Then the submarine pen at the D flag, which is one of the only indoor areas of the map, which kinda reminds me a bit of Battlefield 4's Wavebreaker map from Naval Strike, which took place around an underground base with a big submarine in the centre. A very cool one indeed. And last but definitely not least is the E-Flag, which is the HMS Vindictive, a real-life British vessel which was used during the Zeebrugge Raid. And the cool thing is, the cruiser actually stopped in the same place along the mole in the actual raid as it has done in the map. And the fact that it's an actual objective point means that we get to board the ship and essentially take it over, which is definitely a nice feature to throw in there. So as you can probably see from the gameplay, Zeebrugge is a fairly dark map which takes place in the night or early morning. So visibility is restricted in some areas, and I definitely think that more lighting could be put around the dock and along the mole, just so we can see those oncoming enemies a bit better. I'm not exactly the biggest fan of nighttime maps personally, as I like to be able to see where I'm shooting more clearly. But this wasn't really a massive problem, just a little bit of a preference. Just a few more lights would be quite nice. Something that was a bit more of a problem was the objective markers obstructing sightlines along the map. Because it's already quite dark, the screen is literally full of colourful icons which stand out, and kinda get in the way a bit. I had to turn the opacity of the objective markers right the way down, as all you can see when you look down the map is a bunch of bright blue and red circles which are really distracting. Mainly because they're all practically in a line and at the same height. But generally the map's a lot different to the others already in Battlefield 1, and we finally get to use those boats a bit more and take advantage of their power. This was a really early test and I only had a couple of hours to get this footage and form my opinions, but from what I got to try it was pretty fun and offered a nice variety of sightlines and combat zones to cater for a wide range of playstyles. It should look 1,000 times better with textures, but overall I think it's probably going to be a fan favourite and I had a pretty good time trying it out, even at such an early stage. But anyway, I managed to get a few more minutes of gameplay, so I might as well stick them on the end of this video for anyone who wants to see more of the map. But that's basically all I've got for you as far as the commentary goes. I'll be posting more about the Turning Tides DLC, including the Zeebrugge map, which should be out in January, and all of those new Turning Tides weapons are just around the corner for us to unlock and equip this month. So if you like watching my weapon guides, then you'll be pleased to know that I'll be working on guides for all of those new guns as soon as they're available. So make sure you stick around and subscribe if you want to check them out. If you found this video useful, give that like button a smack, and let me know what you think about the new map down in the comments below. Thanks for watching guys, and enjoy the rest of the gameplay.
We have lost objective apples.
Ammo! Pick it up!
Good shot, well done.
You need a medic over here! There's ammo! Someone patch me up! I'm wounded! Need help!
Kit is available near your location. We have lost objective Charlie.
Let's take it back! There! Ammunition!
Thanks, lad.
We have lost objective butter.
Bad news, lad! We've lost an objective! There's ammo!
We have taken objective Edward.
Objective taken. Murder yourself.
That ammo's got your name on it!
We have taken objective butter.
Das ist ein Sturmsoldat!
We have lost
Bin auf den
objective.
entgegenstoßen!